Hello, fellow bookworms. So today I have an author for you, and I have read two of her books. I have absolutely fallen in love with both of them. Her name is Jenny Colgan. If I have pronounced that wrong, please let me know in the comments how to properly say her name, because there's nothing more irritating when someone pronounces your name wrong. I really did like this author. There was so much that I took from the books that wasn't the romance aspect of it. These are romance books, but before you go, oh gosh, another romance book, please be aware, these books are not all about the physical component of romance. It is more about the journey of what led to the romance and the things that can happen in everyday life that affect the romances. I did a little bit of research about Jenny. I have a website if you would like to go check it out. It's jennycolgan.com. She writes romance, science fiction, and children's books. She does have a Facebook page. It's Jenny Colgan Books. And then she also has Twitter, which is at Jenny Colgan. She has written for the Doctor Who series. She's written under J.T. Colgan and Jane Beaton. I hope I'm saying those right. If not, I'm really, really sorry. So the first book I read of hers was Cafe by the Sea. And I really, really liked the book. There was so much I could identify with in it, about going home, forgiving yourself, dealing with your grief of losing a parent, and then the romance aspect of it was falling in love with her boss. I am not gonna lie, guilty. I have had, I have had little daydreams about some of my bosses. I have even dated one of my bosses. And just so you know, human resources really frowns upon you dating your boss. So when I was reading Cafe by the Sea, you know, I really was able to identify with the going home aspect. There's been so many times in my own life that I have left home and said, oh, I'm never going back, I'm never going back. And fate has other plans and brings me right back home. The other part is losing a parent. I identified a lot with that part of the book and what she felt and how she was going to deal with it, and how for the longest time she didn't deal with it. She just kind of put it behind a door and said, yeah, we're not going to deal with that. We're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist. Which is exactly what I did with my dad's death. When I was reading the book and was seeing, you know, exactly what she was doing about it too, and having to forgive herself for things that she said and done after her parents' death, that was it was kind of weird for once to read a romance book that I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. But it was also nice and it was refreshing because I could identify with the book. It did give me a little bit more hope that, you know, I'll have my happy ever after one day. If you're a hopeless romantic like me, this is probably a good book to read. If you've had a fantasy about your boss, or you've, like me, dated your boss, you will probably enjoy this book just as much as I did. I had such a hard time putting it down. I don't know how many times I stayed up till 2 in the morning to just go, oh, no, I need to read the next chapter. I need to read the next chapter. I have to find out what's going on. So the second book I read by her is this one here, The Bookshop on the Corner. It is also known as The Little Shop of Happy Ever After. So if you do find one of those two titles, it is the same book. Once again, there was so much in this book that I was able to identify with, like losing your job and having that uncertainty of what are you going to do now? How are you going to make your living? Do I need to change myself so that I can keep my job? And coming to the realization that you need to take chances and you need to go after that dream, even if it means moving to another state or another country. You know, a little scary. And you definitely see that in this book of how she goes from, you know, losing her job to making that decision of, if I want to make my dream come true, I'm going to have to take chances, and I'm going to have to move away from everything that I know and grew up around, and to a completely different world. It starts out that she's big town living, you know, city living, and she ends up moving to a small town. And for those of you who know what it's like to live in a small town, it's at times completely and utterly ridiculous. I have done both. I have lived in big towns and cities, and I have lived in small towns. I grew up in small towns. And one of the things about small towns is everybody knows your business before you do. There is no hiding about it. If you do something and it's kind of scandalous or it's shocking or you're new, everybody talks about you. Everybody. And they will know your business before you do. And she learns that in this book. But she takes it with a grain of salt, which is exactly what you have to do when you're small town living. You know, she has that period of adjustment of, you know, living in the city all that time. You get used to wondering about people's lives instead of hearing about people's lives. And she makes that transition of people talking about her life and the things that they know that she's done, and everybody talks about it. But she realizes that happens to everybody. You know, nobody is exempt from the gossip. The other part of this book that I could really identify with was the getting caught up in fantasy instead of real life. When I started getting caught up in the stories and the fantasy of it all and losing myself into the book, I got lost. I think like most bookworms do. We get lost in that story. We get lost in the fantasy. We put ourselves as the main character. We let our brains kind of run away with it. And she does the exact same thing, which I am so guilty of. I don't know how many times I've been like, oh, this is just like a book. And then, you know, see the fantasy of it all and not see, you know, what's really going on. She does have that happen to her in this book, and it is a part of the romance part of it, you know, the love affair. I don't know how many times I've been like, and totally ignored, you know, the real life aspects of it all. It definitely helps remind me that, you know, as wonderful and amazing as books are and the healing power that they do have, you have to remember, don't get lost in it. Don't forget to see the wonderful joy of what real life can do. One of the experiences she has in this book is she gets to birth a lamb for the first time, and the difficulties of what happens with that. And the person she's helping is her landlord, and he goes, "Oh, I haven't read this in a book, have you?" And all I can think of is that whole little scene, because he's right. There's so much that you can only experience in real life that you can't experience in books. So the ratings of the books I was kind of disappointed with. I felt like they were a little bit low, and I would definitely rate them higher. Cafe by the Sea was rated a 3.9 out of 5 by Goodreads. Barnes & Noble rated it a little bit higher at 4.1 out of 5. The bookshop on the corner had a little bit better of a rating. Goodreads gave it a 3.8 out of 5. And then Google users, 89% of them liked the book. For me, I would give both books a rating of 4.5 to 4.8 out of 5. They were wonderful books. They both have so many aspects that you can identify with and kind of put yourself in the story, which I feel like is something you need when trying to read a book, is being able to, can I put myself in this book? But I think Jenny did an awesome job. I'm going to actually read what it has to say about the books for themselves, so that you can take my personal experience of how I liked the book, how I connected with the book, and possibly how else you can connect with the book. So I'm going to start with Cafe by the Sea. Years ago, Flora fled the quiet Scottish island where she grew up, and she hadn't looked back. What would she have done on Muir? It's a place where everyone has known her all her life, where no one will let her forget the past. In bright, bustling London, she can be anonymous, ambitious, and hopelessly in love with her boss. Yet, when fate brings Flora back to the island, she's suddenly swept once more into life with her brothers, all strapping, loud, and seemingly incapable of basic housework, and her father. Yet, even amid the chaos of their reunion, Flora discovers a passion for cooking and finds herself restoring a dusty little pink-fronted shop on the harbor, a cafe by the sea. But with the seasons changing, Flora must come to terms with past mistakes and work out exactly where her future lies. So that was Cafe by the Sea. The second book that I read, so it says, Nina Redmond is a literary matchmaker. Pairing a reader with the perfect book is her passion, and also her job. Or at least it was. Until yesterday, she was a librarian in the hectic city. But now, the job she loved is no more. Determined to make new life for herself, Nina moves to a sleepy village many miles away. There, she buys a van and transforms it into a mobile bookshop that she drives from neighborhood to neighborhood, changing one life after another with the power of storytelling. From helping her grumpy landlord deliver a lamb to sharing picnics with a charming train conductor who serenades her with poetry, Nina discovers there's plenty of adventure, magic, and soul in a place that's beginning to feel like home. A place where she just might be able to write her own happy ending. Out of both books, if you only have time for one of them, please read this one. This one was my absolute favorite. No offense to Cafe by the Sea, I liked that one too, but this one was my favorite out of the two. The good news is both books are e-reader books and they are audiobooks as well. I hope you all have a blessed and happy day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.